Okay, it says it's recording.
Is it recording now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the University of Hertfordshire's Raise and Give 2021 webinar. There will be 4 different webinars this year, and our very first one will be with Irene, who is the chair at the Herts Welcome Refugees. Irene, if you can tell us about your charity and what you do there.
Okay. I think just to say, we were originally set up as Herts Welcome Syrian Families, and that was in response to the horrific war in Syria, and we're in the 10-year of anniversary now. And we actually started as a lobbying group to persuade Hertfordshire councils to participate in the government's Syrian Vulnerable Persons Scheme. The government had set up a scheme that focused through UNHCR on vulnerable refugees, and Hertfordshire hadn't signed up to this. So the government in that had agreed to take 20,000 refugees for this scheme, but it relied on councils signing up to say, yes, we will receive them. So we did a lot of, initially, we were a lobbying group. We did a lot of awareness raising. People really didn't know about the scheme. Hertfordshire has not got a history, did not have a history of participating in resettlement programs. So, you know, it was, and also there are 10 district councils in Hertfordshire and a county council, and both had to agree. So some individual councils were starting to agree, but the county council wasn't agreeing. So there was an awful lot of lobbying across lots of different areas. I don't know if you know the areas in Hertfordshire. It's Watford, Three Rivers, Dacorum, St Albans, Stevenage, North Herts, East Herts, Welwyn Hatfield, Broxbourne. I think that's most of them. So there was a lot of lobbying going on. So anyway, in the end, 9 of the 10 councils agreed to participate in the scheme. Broxbourne decided it wasn't going to participate because they said they took a lot of London overspill. So then we looked, once the councils had agreed to participate in the scheme, we thought, you know, we then looked and thought, well, what can we do to help? Yeah. So we formed ourselves in, we'd already just formed ourselves into a group. Yeah. We weren't a lobbying group, but we thought then we need to change what we do. In most of the councils, the Refugee Council, we introduced the Refugee Council to individual councils, and they agreed they would do the main casework for all bar Dacorum, who said they would do their own casework. So it's a very structured scheme. The councils find the accommodation for the families. They commissioned the Refugee Council to do the casework when they arrived, but we then said, okay, we will fill in that gap. We will really look at the welcome package that we can put forward as an organisation. So really our key aims were really to welcome, to support, and to help with integration. And those have been our 3 key aims throughout. Yeah? So the welcome package was a welcome meal. So we organised the local community and churches and different groups to have a welcome meal when people arrived. We did a package of goods, which included, you know, TV license and anything else. And then we looked at how else, you know, we organised events that we could start bringing the families together. What really developed from that was that, you know, over the few years, not everyone coming was Syrian. And once, you know, they also participated in the Children's Vulnerable Person Scheme. So we actually, first of all, we formed ourselves as a charity in 2017 to formalise and be able to bid for money to be able to help people. And also we changed our name to Herts Welcome Refugees, because we were, we were welcoming people from Sudan, Iraq, from many other areas. Yeah. So, I mean, when people arrived, as I said, we looked at a package of goods. So we looked and see what else, because the councils would only provide the basic goods. So what else did they want? What could we give them to make them feel more welcome? And what came up was very much a need to help with English language. Yeah. And we looked at, initially we were volunteering with the Refugee Council and trained some of our specialism was English language. We had a lot of expertise in that area. So we said, okay, we won't set up our own volunteers. We'll work with the Refugee Council. And, you can organise us. But it also became evident that we needed to do more than that. So we set up our own volunteer befriender network. Yeah? And this was the provision for English language in Hertfordshire was very poor. So there was a real need for that additional work. So we set up our own befriender network. And we've now got in the region of 70 volunteers. There are now over 60, nearly 70, no, over 70 families in Hertfordshire, not all through the Resettlement Scheme. And the Resettlement Scheme is a very set scheme that actually, if you're if you come through the Resettlement Scheme, you are vetted by UNHCR, you have to apply, and most of the people were in Lebanon, some were in Egypt, a few were in Jordan. So they were living in neighbouring countries. They didn't come straight from Syria, and they were classed as vulnerable. And that could have been because there was illness in the family. Maybe they had experienced they had very bad experience. There were some women on their own. So, it was a very set scheme when they came here. So basically, we have set up our own volunteer befriender network, and we then, to provide language support, basically, we said, we're not replacing the language that they will get at college, we're complementing that. And in some areas, there was very, very poor provision. It's much, much better now. I mean, we're now sort of 5 years into the scheme now, from when the first families arrived. So the provision across Hertfordshire is much better now, but there are still gaps and people want to practice their language with someone. And also now, a lot of the children, because they arrived at various different stages, they didn't all arrive as young children, were struggling with language at school and subject support. We've now also worked with the children. So that's how we're operating, as a sort of befriender network. We've organised all sorts of events before lockdown. We would bring families together. We'd have maybe 60, 100 people coming together from the families, from the local community. We organised trips. They've been to the seaside, they've been to museums, they've done all sorts of things to help with integration. We've also got a bike scheme because getting around in Hertfordshire, you will know as students, is not easy and quite expensive. So we organised a bike scheme where, one of the things, we'd make sure that the families had a bike, a locked, a visor, a helmet, and that's still running 5 years on. So, I mean, those are the main things we do. The other thing is there are no other charities that work across the whole of Hertfordshire dealing with resettled refugees. as well as asylum seekers. There's one other charity that operates in Watford and Three Rivers, the Watford and Three Rivers Refugee Partnership. They deal mainly with asylum seekers. And initially we did say to them, did they want to work across Hertfordshire? And they said, no, they'd rather stay in their own area. So there was a real lack of provision across Hertfordshire, and there were no Syrian community groups. There are no, there were groups in London, but not here. So, there was a lack. We really we're set up, and we are set up to bridge that gap. And, that's, so since COVID, when COVID hit, it was obviously quite devastating, and devastating for the families because, they had been locked up in their own countries, but for different reasons. And now suddenly they were locked up here. So we changed the way we operated. We had luckily done a crowdfunding appeal to help with laptops and Chromebooks. So we made sure that as many families as we could, an individual, had access to Chromebooks so they could participate. We did a lot of tutoring around Zoom and set up quite a lot of activities using WhatsApp, Zoom, some just telephone, phone calls, keeping in touch. So that's how we've been operating. And that's how we're operating still at the moment, even though things are easing up. It was very difficult to bring a lot of people together, even during the summer. We had a few events, but we're still mainly operating through Zoom and WhatsApp and also we're doing activities now for the children. So we've got a book club, we've got a library, we have a book club and an author session. I've just been to an author session today with children coming in on Zoom and on their iPads to speak to a local author who's written a lovely book, which was about refugees as well. So, we're expanding our activities as well. Does that?
Yeah, that is, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, that is.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, I really admire how Herts Welcome Refugees managed to get all the community together, because as an international student, I just even if I do have a lot of friends in the UK, when I meet Korean people, they're just strong connection, and it just helps me to overcome being homesick or missing my family. We can meet up, cook our own food, and it just, yeah. It was
and that's
really...
why we brought the families together in events, so they could support each other.
Yeah.
And that's what we're beginning to see. I mean, people have been arriving every year. No one arrived. No, one family arrived last year. We're expecting a few more families this year, but also other people are hearing about us.
Yeah.
So they're coming to us. And, through things like Zoom, they can support each other, because it's been really, really hard on the families. It's been hard on the volunteers as well. So it's supporting, it's supporting our volunteers. So we're supporting around 70 volunteers, and we're also supporting, we've given support either directly or indirectly to over 300 people last year.
Yeah.
Some of that might be a family, so it might have been hardship funds. We had hardship funds last year. We gave gifts at Christmas. We did food parcels. So we looked at every which way we could support.
That is great. Also, one of our purpose for these webinars are to inspire the students at the University of Hertfordshire to volunteer more and get involved into the charities. So if you want to tell them why they should get involved into charities such as Herts Welcome Refugees?
I think volunteering is a really important thing, and you learn a lot through volunteering. Yeah. Now, for Herts Welcomes Refugees, the type of volunteering you need to be interested in is you need to be interested in different cultures. There's no point in, supporting, coming to work with us, yeah? And you need to be interested in the humanitarian, refugee issues, asylum seeker issues. But also, the main thing is you want to build up a relationship and a friendship within boundaries, yeah? We do have clear boundaries for our volunteers. And, they are quite important because, if people are very traumatized, once you build up a relationship, things can open up, but you need to know where to refer them to. So you're not expected to take on people's problems, yeah? You don't, you listen. You have a nice listening need. And also, at the minute, we're not running events, but maybe, when we do run events, they would like to organize an event or help with events. Another thing your university does, it does mentoring, doesn't it? You have a mentoring scheme.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Herts Welcomes Refugees could link in with your mentoring scheme so that there are a lot of young people now coming up, yeah, in their teens who might benefit from a little bit of mentoring support. Also, subject support. You've got skills, you're doing different subjects. The young people now are getting older. Yeah, we've got more young people in secondary schools, and they often struggle with some of the subjects. And it's a sharing, during GCSEs or A-levels, you could share some of your skills in helping them to understand their subjects. A lot of the stuff would be done on Zoom, and we do have very clear safeguarding. So, we do every student that works with us, every volunteer that works with us would have a DBS, would need a DBS, or would need to be part of an official scheme. So if your university had an official mentoring scheme that you were cleared to work with, that could work with our charity. Yeah. But some of the events, if you wanted to organize something, we wouldn't necessarily need a full DBS for something like that. Yeah. There is a society in the University of Hertfordshire, students and staff supporting refugees. They were mainly a lot of young people who have joined with them have been doing trips to Calais. So that's a different type of volunteering for ours. At the minute, obviously, it's very difficult to do that sort of thing. Ours is very much the people who are settling here, who have settled here, or who are seeking asylum in this country or in Hertfordshire locally. So, we work across different areas, and each area has got an area convener. So they know the families' needs, they link with the families, and they would then link. And we also have one post, and that's our volunteer coordinator. So if people were interested in volunteering, then they would talk to her, apply to her. There would be an induction. We're doing a lot of inductions on Zoom, but it is a two-way process. You gain as much as the person you're supporting. I started as a volunteer with Herts Welcome. Well, I started on the management group, and I'm now the chair, but I also worked as a volunteer, and I still do. I am still a volunteer, and I've learned so much about different cultures, sort of different cooking, different ways of life, and we've shared that together. Yeah. And I think for the young people as well, it's important for them to have some inspiration to want to go to university, to want to do things, you know, because that often inspires students to do well, doesn't it?
Mm.
If at school someone is saying to you, you could do this, you could do that, and we're here to support you doing it. So that's why I would, you know, I hope that would answer why.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
it really inspired me as well because I don't really have any volunteering experience before, and I would love to get involved to this refugees. If you want to find more information, or if you actually want to volunteer, who can we contact, or is there any kind of website we can visit?
You would go to www, I can put it in the chat.
Okay.
That's our website, yeah.
Okay.
And you can contact us through our website. You can contact me. I can put you in touch with our volunteer coordinator. I mean, it's not an easy process. It might work, it might not, because it's a two-way thing as well. And where, you know, it would be a matching, you know, but something coming out of the university. And also for you, your students, in terms of volunteering, see what you can do with your own organisation in the university as well.
Mm.
Because you do have an organisation there.
Mm-hmm.
But they know us as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, but yes, so that's how you would contact us, through the website initially. And it's worth having a look at our website, because you'll see some of the stories of what people have done, what our volunteers have done, what our families have done, some of the activities that we've done as well. So it's a good website to have a little browse around and decide, is that for me? But, you know, the subject support could be really useful. The subjects, you know, that you could help with. Because sometimes hearing it, not from a teacher, from someone, you know, that they have a more relaxed relationship with. And that's what we're doing. It's creating that relaxed atmosphere. So if you've got something difficult, you're not scared to say, I really don't understand that, and I can still keep asking you. You know, it's that sort of thing. And that's where, you know, that's how we operate. It's very much a befriending, a friendship with barriers, with borders, yeah? So that, you know, there are things you can't do, and we will tell you about those, or you shouldn't do, yeah? And, you know, we don't want to get you into a situation where you feel uncomfortable, but there is always somewhere you can go to, you know, so you're not just sent off and left on your own. And most of the work has been done visiting people's homes, yeah, but that can be quite difficult, and that has been difficult, but depending on how it's worked, I mean, Zoom has made a difference and has opened other things for us, because, you know, we're working in a different way, and we're able to match, you know, before, if I found someone, say, in Rickmansworth or someone in Hemel, and you were in Hatfield, it was quite difficult for you to get there. Whereas through Zoom, you can actually do it, and then make, you know, at some stage get together in a different way. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us how you joined the charity?
Well, I have always, my background, I started off as an English teacher, then went on to teach English for speakers of other languages, ESOL, yeah. And when we moved to St. Albans, I had a family, and I actually started volunteering with the local Bangladeshi community as a volunteer teaching English. And then when I started to work, and I did work for many years at Oaklands College, yeah, first, I taught English, and I also taught English to many refugees from different countries, Palestine, people came from Turkey. We had the Kosovo War, so when the war from the war in Serbia and Bosnia, so that war and refugees coming there. So I've always had an interest in working with refugees, and I was also part of a national charity called Natekla, and in London they always worked with refugees. So I've always had that interest, yeah. So that was part of my background. I'm also a member of my local Amnesty group, and my remit in Amnesty in the local St Albans Amnesty group, which again we could, you could join, yeah. You could, quite an important organisation. My role was the lobbying for refugees and asylum seekers. So basically, it was really through Amnesty that I heard about the Resettlement Scheme. And we heard about it then through our council, through a local councillor. And we started saying, okay, let's find out about this resettlement scheme. Let's see what our Amnesty group can do. And we started talking, there are 4 Amnesty groups in Hertfordshire, started talking to the other Amnesty groups. And we also started talking to an organisation, a peace and justice group in a local church in Hertford. And we had a public meeting, and there was such strong support for us to do something practical. So that's how I first became involved, because I wanted to do something practical, to not just say, okay, we're signing letters or we're signing petitions. How can we actually help people in this horrific war? How can we get people over here? So we started lobbying. So I started with the lobbying, and then I started getting, as we formalized the charity, I started on the management group, and then I volunteered with the charity as well. So that's how I became involved, through a whole series of, through Amnesty, through my background, through my work, previous work with refugees. I also worked for 8 years at Hertfordshire County Council doing family learning, running a scheme there for adult and family learning. And there again, we were trying to look at where the refugees were. And we realized there were very few refugee communities in Hertfordshire, individuals, often quite isolated. So that also encouraged me to, when there was the opportunity to set up an organisation, not a charity initially, to want to get involved in that.
Wow, that is great. I really love listening to your stories. It really inspires me. Yeah. Because it's summer holidays soon, and if we want to kind of arrange university students maybe tutoring these children or refugees who are around our age or below, what are the age groups you have?
In most of the children, they vary. They go from primary,
Right.
they go from babies to primary to secondary. Most of the older youngsters are at college, yeah? Okay. So it might be that some of them are interested in some extra help from there.
Right.
There are also young asylum seekers who might need some extra support. So it's a wide range of ages. So it's really sort of, when we see what skills you come forward, the mentoring scheme is probably a good one. I don't know who runs the mentoring scheme. It's worth maybe you going back and finding out about the mentoring scheme in your university and how we could link together with that, yeah? So I think that's probably the best way as well to start. Or if someone individually wanted to sign, they would just have to say, okay, we're interested. What have you got? Who have you got that might benefit from what we can give? And we have to say to you, maybe we have, or maybe we haven't at that stage.
Right.
You
can always do a little bit of fundraising for our group. I think one year some of your students did actually. They ran a stall at Hatfield, not the main campus, the one at
DHAV.
Yes.
DHAV, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we have, yeah. And raised some money for us, and but there are various ways you can do things.
yeah.
Do you have age restrictions on how old someone can be to volunteer with you?
Well, we are saying we would like you to be over 18, yeah? Yeah. That's how, on the whole, we're working. It's safer. You know, we have some youngsters, younger people getting involved with the charity, but it's also, but it's more parallel activities like the author sessions. If some of our volunteers have younger kids, yeah, they can join in, yeah. But it's in a not in a one-to-one situation.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much everything we
Yeah,
can
that's it from me.
talk about. It was really great.
Yes, this was a really
Yeah.
great talk. Thank you
Nice
for taking the
talking to you
time.
both. Yes, nice talking to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and starting our webinar series this year.
Okay, that's good. So which other charities are you going to be talking to?
The ones that replied to us, I think domestic violence,
Yeah.
Resolve. I can't remember the other one, but yeah.
Good. That's
Yeah.
good. Really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Aisha, do you want to stop recording and maybe end our meeting here?
Yeah.